Well, according to the State Department, a spokesman there, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who just wrapped up a trip to Riyadh and Ankara in Turkey, did not even listen to that audio recording the Turks say they possess. Pompeo, while en route to Turkey, did tell reporters that the U.S. wanted to give the Saudis, catch this, space to come up with an answer. You know how they interrogate suspects in a case quickly to get the information before they cook up an excuse, an alibi? We're giving them time to cook up an alibi. Let's watch.
Did they say that Mr. Khashoggi is alive or dead?
I don't want to talk about any of the facts. They didn't want to either, in that they want to have the opportunity to complete this investigation in a thorough way.
Yeah, right. Anyway, the New York Times reports that Pompeo was dispatched to Saudi Arabia to deliver the message that, quote, a credible investigation and a Saudi explanation of what happened had to be conducted rapidly before it imperiled the rest of the agenda that Mr. Trump and his lieutenants, Reed Jared Kushner, have devised with the kingdom. According to multiple media reports now, the Turkish government has alleged that Saudi Arabia dispatched a 15-member team to kill Khashoggi while he was inside that consulate. And earlier this week, it was reported that Saudis were preparing to protect the crown prince by saying that Khashoggi died in a botched interrogation manned by rogue agents. However, the New York Times is reporting that 4 of those 15 alleged killers were close to the crown prince himself. Amid this growing diplomatic crisis, David Ignatius of the Washington Post reports that the crown prince is said to vacillate between dark brooding and rampaging anger, looking for someone to blame for the murder. For more, I'm joined by Yamiche Alcindor, PBS NewsHour White House correspondent, David Corn, Mother Jones Washington bureau chief, and himself, David Ignatius, Washington Post foreign columnist. David, are we part of an effort to find the truth or to help the Saudis with a cover-up? What's our mission here?
Well, so far, President Trump, in his own statements, has seemed to me to be opening the way for the Saudis to come up with, a way to find a scapegoat. President Trump talked about rogue killers having been involved. The evidence that's emerging, you refer to the New York Times story. The New York Times had a powerful report showing that one of the 15 people who it's believed were sent to Istanbul has been a close bodyguard with Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi crown prince, in Boston, in Houston, in Paris, in Madrid. That's pretty devastating evidence that MBS, as he's called, was himself involved in this process. But so far, I see nothing from the Trump administration that's really pressuring the Saudis to make a complete account of this.
We've got an American resident who's missing. Most people believe dead. Most people, to be honest, think the Saudis did it in that consulate. They had the one who had control of that room. Are we using any of our agencies, the FBI or the CIA, to try to get to the bottom of this? Or have they been held back by this president?
Chris, I think that's one of the questions that people need to focus on in my own reporting. It's something I'm really looking hard at. Jamal Khashoggi, my colleague, somebody I've known for more than 15 years, was a permanent resident of the United States, as you said, living in Virginia. That means that in legal terms, he was a U.S. person. And if any information emerged through intelligence channels that he was threatened, there was for government officials a duty to warn. What did they do when they learned information? If they didn't learn information, why weren't they pushing harder for it? The Saudis have been advertising their anger at him. So those are some of the questions I think that need to be asked, because this was not just a Washington Post journalist. This was somebody who had a status as a U.S. person living here.
So well said. And I think that just think if we had given him the heads up that the Saudis were after him, he wouldn't have walked into that consulate. He'd be alive today. Yesterday, President Trump was asked by the Associated Press if the allegations were true. Would he consider, if they were, would he reconsider the relationship between us and the Saudis? He told the AP, quote, I think we have to find out what happened first. You know, here we go again with, you're guilty until proven innocent. I don't like that. That's Trump talk. Anyway, today he was asked if he was providing cover for the Saudi regime. When he said that, here's what he said now.
I'm not giving cover at all. With that being said, Saudi Arabia has been a very important ally of ours in the Middle East.
You know, David, it doesn't take, this isn't like he's comparing it, I guess, to the Kavanaugh case. We know that case.
Yeah.
That was 36 years ago, and there was some murkiness to that. Look, all that's on the record now. But here's a case where a guy walks, his fiancée, the woman he's in love with, he's going to marry, waits outside while he trepidatiously goes in. We see him going in on the camera there. Yeah. He never comes out. Inside that room are 15 security agents, including 4 or 5 of them very close to the crown prince. He never comes out. And one of them, according to the Times, he was a doctor. Well, I can't get into that because we haven't asserted it yet or corroborated. But there's no other factor. There's only the Saudis in their consulate. And he never came out.
And a moment ago, you mentioned the FBI and the CIA.
Yeah.
There's another agency involved here, at least on our side, the NSA, the National Security Agency. And if something happened like that in the Turkish consulate, you can bet there were communications between the consulate and Riyadh back and forth before, after, during, and even leading up to that. So for Trump to sort of act like he has no agency here, he can find out probably pretty good, and with liaison with the Turks, who seem to want to get this out to some degree, I'm pretty confident the United States, if it doesn't already, can very quickly have a very clear idea. The bottom line is that he doesn't really care.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to know. He wants to do deals with MSB, like he wants to do deals with Kim Jong-un. It doesn't affect him directly, so that means he doesn't care.
Anybody that watches Law and Order, and who doesn't watch it, anybody who watches any crime show knows the police always want to get to the suspects quickly. They want to get them before the Menendez brothers, whatever, start corroborating this story. You want to get the fresh guilt on the record quickly. You don't say, hey, guys, take a couple days and get your story together. We're going to give you plenty of space. Whoever gives suspects in a case of murder space to figure out their defense unless you want them off the hook?
Well, I'll say this. I want to go back to what the president said about this journalist. One of the things he said was he wasn't a U.S. citizen. Remember that the United States is supposed to be the leader of the free world. We're supposed to be the leader of people who want press freedom. So even if he was a French journalist or a British journalist, the president would think that the American president would say journalists should not be getting killed in consulates. We can't be doing this.
Excuse me, is he saying it's not my job? He's saying it's not my job. No, he's saying it's not my job to protect this. Like, don't blame me if we lose the House this year. Trump's doing all this kind of crap lately. It's not my job to defect this.
There's that interpretation. And the other thing I want to say is that this is a president who has complex business ties to all sorts of countries, including Saudi Arabia. And as Secretary Pompeo was meeting with Saudi Arabia, they deposited $100 million into the State Department's account to help with the fight in Syria. So what you have is the Saudis essentially giving money to America, saying, hey, here's some stuff while we come up with our answer. Here's some money to keep you quiet. I think that's pretty startling.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.